Hello, welcome to the Detour Live. Now, we have got a massive episode. I say that every show, but they've all been pretty good so far. Now, I want to start off and say an apology to Johnny Trevorrow. Johnny, give you a fair bit of shit on this show. If it's not your Wi-Fi playing up, if it's not coughing and splattering before you ask a question, the latest one has been Dave Brailsford. I've been at you for weeks. Where's Dave? Where's Dave? And I've given you a fair bit of stick, mate. But finally, you've delivered, Iffy.
We have, yes. And Dave delivered up me, but he's come on board, which is fantastic. So we're about to talk to the great man. So look, he's standing in the wings. Whack him in.
Sir Dave Brailsford, mate, how's the emotions? You guys must be over the moon.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's It's I think it's still sinking in because you know it's like with the Grand Tours. Sometimes you feel pretty confident around it, and then other ones go right down to the wire. And I don't think none of us ever seen a Grand Tour settled like that one was just yesterday. You know, with the final time trial, man against man. You know, no tactics, really pacing strategy maybe, but you know, no teammates, on your own. Some way to finish off really, but it's some race really, because of course, you know, it started off really well with Filippo. First day, you know, rainbow bands, his first day in the Giro, and of course he went and got the pink jersey, which was a real big plus. Geraint did a really nice time trial, and thought, right, we're set up here, and then of course he crashed out, which was pretty devastating. And after that, you know, the guys said, okay, well, let's get out there aggressively and race, you know, expansively, which they did really, really well. And Tao said, okay, well, I'll just sit on GC and chip away, and slowly but surely he moved himself up, you know, quietly under the radar until he got to the very top step, which was amazing.
Yeah, and I tell you, we're all raving about the wonderful ride of Jai Hindley, of course, you know, a young West Australian boy who really took it up to you guys. But the ride of the race for me was actually Rowan Dennis. I mean, his 2 days in the mountains up to Stelvio and then in Sestriere just were staggering. You know, everyone's been touting him as maybe being a Grand Tour rider one day. I didn't know whether he would be, but after that, I've changed my tune. I can tell you, he was just really, really impressive, and he was the difference for you guys. He was the difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely right there. I think he single-handedly turned that race upside down, I'd say. And it's not often you see one guy being able to make such a huge difference to the outcome of a race. And it's been interesting, you know. I think Rowan joined the team, and you know, he somehow he's picked this kind of bit of a reputation up. People, you know, question his commitment in sort of team dynamics and all the rest of it. But boy, you couldn't wish for a better teammate, and he's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and he's grown into it. And I think he's getting confident. He feels comfortable, I think, in the environment. He feels loved, which he is. And then he just sat out and expressed himself. I think maybe he thought, you know, we've seen him. We think of him mainly potentially as a time trialist, but he's not. You know, he's and he's shown everybody here what a wonderful talent he is, and he did it all. He took Tao under his wing and he just committed to him. And it was a beautiful thing to watch, you know.
And it looks like Rowan is just really happy. Like you can just tell in these interviews, like he's in a really good spot mentally. I mean, that must obviously have a huge effect on your riders and staff. Yeah,
that's been I think when everybody's been on this Giro, to a person really, who said it's just he's been incredibly enjoyable. One of the most one of the best experiences that they've had. And I think what's transpired maybe in the end is that there's a group of guys with no egos. They just got on. They were really encouraging each other, really happy for each other to do well. And they had to go every day. And then the guys who had their opportunity went off in a break, tried to win. And the guys who weren't in a break all sat back and really, really dug in to help Tao, you know. And it was like it's like the classic camaraderie. They've had a brilliant time and they're happy. And if you could bottle that up and put that into every race, they go a lot further, that's for sure.
I've got to say, Dave, that when when I heard that that Rowan had signed with you guys, I got quite excited. I've known him since he was a youngster. He rode in the Bay Crits when he was about 16, and I've seen his talent. And I've always found him to be super professional, but very particular on little bits and pieces. And he just wasn't in the right team. And I was worried for him. But the minute I saw he'd signed with you guys, I thought, you know what? He'll be good here because you guys are so professional and you tick all the boxes that are right for Rowan. So I think it's a wonderful marriage.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, I think like anything else, he took a bit of time. You know, you get to know each other a little bit, and then he was very, you know, he had his ideas about, particularly about time trialing, and so he stuck with that to start with. But then as he felt more at ease, and I think he gained a bit of confidence in the team, he's become much more open-minded in his choice of equipment and willing to try, you know, various other things. And I think you're right. You know, I think fundamentally, I think he feels loved. He feels happy, and I think he knows he's got. We trust him a lot, you know, and that's settled him down. And then once you got him to that, you know, the good sort of mental space, really, then he just goes and expresses himself. So, but I think one of the, like you say, you know, I think the performance really. I mean, obviously Tao won, and Ghana did his thing, but I think in terms of impact on the whole race. And what Rowan did over the, you know, Chima Copy, you'd have thought, Rowan did would have won the Chima Copy, you know, top of Stelvio.
It's staggering, isn't it? It is just staggering. Yeah. And look, it's funny that Aussies keep coming and saving your bacon, mate, because I can remember Richie doing the same thing almost for Chris a few years ago back in the old Sky Days on the Tour de France. So, and he was just as impressive as well. And interested, you get him back next year as well. So it's a bit like the old really family coming back together.
Really looking forward to that. Yeah.
But the other thing, just what we're talking about with Ghana, with Filippo, his individual stage win was staggering as well. He came out and did something we didn't think he'd be able to do on a tough day for a big fella like him. That was also super, super impressive.
I think that set the tone, actually. It was, so that was the day, obviously, Geraint crashed out. And then the following day, Filippo went to the break, and, you know, we're thinking, oh, great, you know, he's made the break. And of course, then he started to climb like he did. And I think for anybody who knows anything about cycling, they knew what a unbelievable performance that was. And I think all of a sudden it opened him, it spread his wings out from being just a time trialist, an individual pursuiter. And people are, wow, if he can climb like that, then, you know, it opens up a whole new world, basically. And it's, and I think that was quite inspirational, I think, for the rest of the guys. And so that sort of set the tone. And from there, they just went from strength to strength.
Dave, I don't know Tao, but from all the interviews I've seen, the good litmus test in cycling, if they're a good bloke, is how emotional people get when they have a victory. There's been such a huge outpouring of emotion for this guy. He must be really well respected.
Yeah, he is. He's a really nice guy. He's a caring guy. So he doesn't like it. Somebody's not quite right. It kind of plays on him a little bit, you know, and he's always asking you, are you okay? Are they okay? He wants to know everybody's all right. And I think that kind of touch goes a long way, you know, and then he's kind, you know, he thinks about other people. Obviously he's a great little racer, and he can get his elbows out when he needs to, but fundamentally I think he's just a good person, and I think people can feel that. When you've got a good heart like that, then people are happy to see you being successful.
Was it a different feeling being in a Grand Tour where, after obviously G crashing out, there was really nothing to lose, even though when it got to the pointy end, you're thinking, hang on, we could win this. But without that pressure, did you find it more enjoyable?
Well, I think as a group, you know, the whole group, to be fair, came together and bounced back. You know, the Tour didn't quite go our way this year. And, you know, obviously Kwiato and Carapaz put a good little show on at the end. But it wasn't, you know, it's not what we went to look for in the first instance. And so coming off the back of that, you know, we're getting quite a bit of stick and criticism. But then I think you're absolutely right. You know, when it was like rather than having a single leader when it was all in and makes it pretty intense, and all of a sudden all of the riders had an opportunity. They all felt, wow, okay, we're going to do something here. You know, Castrovecchio hadn't been in a break for 9 years, and there he was up the road enjoying himself. And I think it just brought out. I think personally, it just brought out that real spirit of racing. You know, we're not a train. You know, we're not just robots, as people like to say. And I think all the guys got into the sport because they're bike racers. And I think the essence of bike racing is kind of coming back a little bit into our sport. I think, you know, we've got this new young generation.
Yep.
You know, they're not scared of trying. They'll attack from far out. They're good racers, and I think there's a real shift in the way the sport's heading at the minute. And I think we're going to go back to being more about racing than it is about just training and fitness and all the rest of it. You know.
You were chatting about
the fact you've been accused of training the team to be like robots in the past, Dave. But now I see a headline on Cycling News here: Brailsford proclaims new racing philosophy, and it says that you're going to everything's changed, mate. What does it say here? It's what it's like about this is we've done the train, we now done the defensive style of racing, and won a lot of doing that. But it's not much fun. So really, this is it. This is the new style. So what's that all about, mate?
Well, I just think, you know, I think the sport is changing. There's no doubt about that. And there's a young, fresh group of guys coming in, and they're just ripping up the rule book, aren't they? You know, in terms of the style and the approach to it, and it's great. And you know, the reality is, when I was a young lad living in North Wales and I left home to go and try and be a professional cyclist, I went on my own to France with my bike in a box, a rucksack, trying to find a team. And I did that. Why? I left my family, I left my girlfriend, left everything behind to go do that. And I did it because I loved bike racing, you know, and it was like the excitement, the exhilaration of racing is what I loved. And mixed in with a sacrifice and, you know, all the things that we like about cycling. And then, of course, you get into a position where, you know, some years down the line, you know, did all the Olympic thing, and then with the team, figured out with Bradley, actually, we could really, you know, try and win by focusing on the time trials and defending more in the mountains. Of course, that then became our default kind of way of riding, really. But he just snuffled everything out. It was like more like the Terminator, you know, smashed everything out the way, which was, it's all well and good, but you become the enemy. And I suppose that the dilemma is you find a way to win, and it's professional sport in the end, so you're going to keep on doing it. And we won a lot, but there were certain, I think, to be fair to the way that Chris rode in the Giro, and some of the, you know, the way that he rode was fantastic. Likewise with Geraint, likewise with Egan. But in general, the approach was fairly defensive. And I think we had a big impact on the sport, you know, and people did criticise us. People didn't necessarily all like that style of racing. And I think now, you know, I've probably got, you know, a few more years left, and we've got a new group. We've got the Grenadiers as it feels like the start of a new team and a bit of a new era. And so I'd like to very much leave the sport until I do. With a really, really cool racing team that is, you know, the type of thing that inspired me when I was a kid when I started. So, you know, I think the riders are up for it. The sport's kind of in a good place at the minute. So why not become, you know, be a bit more, I guess in soccer we'd say, instead of being like Germany, be a bit more like Brazil, you know, or instead of being a Terminator, be a bit more like Zorro, that kind of thing, you know, and have a bit more flair.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing, Dave, when you guys are innovators, you know, and every year you're doing little tweaks and the marginal gains and so forth. Other teams see that and they go, "Oh, we might do that as well." And then next year you're trying to innovate again. Is that pretty taxing?
Well, it's just kind of what it never stops, you know. I mean, I think just accept that that's part of this sport. Is you've got to keep on moving forward all the time. There's no point that it's going to stop. You don't get an edge and keep it. You get an edge for a little while maybe before everybody else catches up. And of course, with the way it is now with technology, it's very quick for people to catch up, and for us to look at other people as well. To be fair, so I think it's part and parcel of the sport. But I think the other teams are, you know, Jumbo and UAE and Rod in Bahrain and you know, they do some really good stuff, you know, to be fair to them, and they're pushing us as much as we've been pushed. But I do think with like this year with, you know, obviously we changed from Sky to Ineos, and then Ineos onto the Ineos Grenadiers, and we had an awful blow with Nico at the start of the year. That's really did take its toll, you know, way more than people see, I think. And so coming into the Tour this year was it's first time we've been to the Tour without Nico, and that was tough. It was really tough. But I think, you know, not winning the Tour this year actually felt a little, and it was not a pleasant experience. It also frees you up because you're no longer trying to hang on to something and avoid losing. All of a sudden you can sit back again, reset, and think, right, let's go out and try and smash it and try and win again. But let's do it with a bit of style instead of just winning. The style of trying to win is important, I think, and that's what we're going to try and do.
What you touched on before, Dave, when you mentioned about what's happening around the world with the youngsters coming on, it's just been amazing, you know, with all of them and all these different teams. And so, what used to be, like, don't ride the Tour de France before 24. Now they're winning it at 21. Who would have thought that? And 22, even with your young bloke Bernal, and there's so many of them now. Van der Poel, and it's just so exciting. But I got to tell you, there was one sad thing that happened at the Tour de France. You guys came back, and I actually picked you. I said, look, you know what, Sky, this is their last chance. They have to win today. And I picked Kwiatkowski to win a stage. And the bloke was going, put the money on.
You got to let it go.
And seriously, halfway through the stage, he backed out of the bet. It cost us $900. I haven't gotten over that.
Yeah. Hey, why is it, Dave? Do you think this surge of young superstars are coming through? What's going on at the moment?
I think it's kind of probably a lot of little bits and bobs, really. I think you know, it's much easier now to find out how to train properly, you know, through technology, and it's not there's no secret really. It's all out there. So I think the young guys are training really hard and they get themselves in really good shape earlier on. And I think they're seeing they see their peers, you know, doing really well. So obviously Egan won the Tour, and then the guys who raced with him are going, well, I've raced with him, and then the Van der Poel steps up and people go, I'm his age, you know. And so I think they just believe in themselves. And all of a sudden you've got this refreshing young group coming through, and they're not it's as if they've just got a bit more freedom in their minds, you know, and they'll attack from 50k out, they'll attack from 80k out, and they believe in it. And I think once you get 2 or 3 of them doing that, then other people believe, and so it just kind of feeds this contagious belief, I think. And I think that's having a big impact on what we see.
What are some of the key things you look for when you're recruiting riders and staff? What are the key attributes you really want?
Well, you want hunger, don't you? You know, you got to have hunger, and in this game, you've got to resist fatigue. You know, it's 3 weeks working hard. Everybody's going to get tired, and can you resist that and keep your morale up, keep a good mentality? Can you bounce back? I like people who are proactive. So, you know, instead of having to ask to help, or even saying, well, I would have helped if you'd asked me. Don't need to do that. You know, you should be stepping in and helping. And I like to have people with opinions. So we try and work on a basis that everybody's an opinion, but wherever possible, we'll work with the collective opinion. So it's good to have, you know, to be fairly strong and have your ideas, but also have people who can work in a group and, you know, have a collective dynamic and try and work where you know that you know you might have your ideas, but it might not go your way that time. But instead of going, oh well, that was never my idea, don't really believe in this, they go, okay, fair enough. I've had to say, now I'm going to get behind everybody else, and we're going to go off in you know, and back it basically. Hard work's important, like really hard work, and I think you've got a certain somewhere inside, you know, you've got to be a good person. I think, you know, can't be a prick, can you really, in this game? You just can't it's too hard, you know, you're together 24/7, and you know, you just got to get rid of those guys, and then you get a harmonious team, hopefully.
Well, you
It's
said
been an
after the
amazing
tour.
journey. I was just saying, it's been an
Yeah,
amazing
right.
journey for you guys from the start to get a company like Sky involved. And I remember hearing the story of how you did that, but I've only heard Shane Sutton's version. It might be slightly different to yours, but it was but wonderful how you managed to get one of the world big player like Sky involved. Then that's come to the end of the journey, and you've managed to get someone even more amazing in Jim Ratcliffe with Ineos. That was a big step to be able to go from Sky to Ineos.
Yeah, and I think it's quite interesting actually. At the end of Sky, I think a lot of people, I'm not sure how many people thought that we'd continue really, but it's a great sport, and I think people like this sport, and if it's presented well and you're professional with it, then I think you find people who'll invest. And Jim is an incredible guy. I mean, he's an inspirational character. There's no doubt about that. And he's obviously got these America's Cup that he's invested in. They'll be down. Well, Ben Ainsley and his team's now down in New Zealand, and obviously they've got an involvement now in Formula One with the Mercedes team. They've got football teams, obviously Nice and Lausanne, and they did the 159 challenge, and of course then they bought our team. So it's quite an interesting place to be at the minute. It's probably one of the most interesting places in global sport, because you've got these families of sports, all collective, we're operating in a collective. And whilst we're still very much in a sort of federal structure, we're still running our own teams. There is a connection, and we are starting to share more insights and knowledge. And I think as time goes by, the connectivity and what can be gained out of the Ineos Sport Group is pretty exciting as a prospect. So I think I personally, I think there's a lot more people would invest a lot more money in this sport if we could structure it a little bit better and professionalize a little bit more. Then I think we could really compete with some of the other major big global sports.
Is one of those big setbacks, Dave? We often talk about it on this show. The fact that cycling, there's not much return on investment in terms of you can't sell tickets, all this sort of revenue from broadcast. Are these sort of the key things that you think need to change?
Yeah, I think I'd take a step back and have a look at the overall structure, to be honest, because I think the way it is at the minute, it encourages everybody. When push comes to shove, we can all talk about being collective and all being in it together and all the rest of it, but when push comes to shove, I think everybody then sort of steps back and it becomes little groups, and we're not always aligned. So you've got the organisers, the teams, the UCI, the ASO, the riders, and there's not really a framework around it all that encourages people to be collective or to share or to improve collectively. So rather than sort of thinking about taking a little slice of each other's cake, as it were, we should all be together, sitting around a table, thinking, how do we grow the cake for everybody? And that just lacks a little bit of coordination, I'd say, at the minute, and a little bit of leadership. And if that could be put in place, I think we could see more of a sort of a franchise, an NFL, NBA type approach, where we could all have minimum standards, we could all share ideas, we could all share marketing ideas and creating value ideas, and make the whole elite side of the sport into something which would give a great return, and people would invest more.
Yeah, look, Dave, it's exactly what we've been seeing that from that same hymn book, and it's just about growing the pie together, making it a bigger pie, because there's no doubt if everyone was together, the broadcast contract could be huge. We're just tinkering around the edges, and if everyone worked together, made it huge, then you could share a little bit of it around. It's ridiculous that a team like yourself, like Mitchell and Scott, that nearly all of the money comes from sponsorship. Not from nowhere else. No other sport at the top level can survive like that.
No, that's right. It is exactly that. We're totally reliant on sponsors, totally reliant on our revenue coming in from people who decide to invest in a sponsorship way, and somehow I think we've got to change that model. But I don't think we can do it individually. So it needs pulling together, and it needs a clear sort of, it needs a 10-year proper strategic plan for the whole sport, where everybody's aligned and everybody can buy into it. But on the other hand, what I would say, actually, I do think, some of the teams at the minute are doing a really good job, I'd say. And so there's more and more teams, moving up. And as that happens, I think there's hope, and I do think, I'm pretty optimistic that we're heading in the right direction. So it's not all doom and gloom from my side. And I just think we need to finally change the structure of how the sport is run. And if we could do that, and have a bit more of a single voice and a single alignment and a single entity, then I think that would accelerate everything, because you've got to collaborate in the end. Anything great is going to come through collaboration.
Yeah, 100%. We've got a few comments coming in. We've got one from Ian Thomas. He says, well done for getting Dave Brailsford on the detour, not often interviewed in Australia. Is that correct? Got something against the Aussies, mate?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just I promised Iffy that if I ever talk in Australia, it's going to be via him. So,
oh, there you go. You have to get some bottles of Michelin sent up to the UK, Iffy. Stuart McIntosh says, will Rowan Dennis get a chance to ride for the GC at Ineos in the future?
Well, I think it was interesting. I think if we set out with Rowan and said, right, Rowan, we're going to go and ride GC, I'm not sure that would be the right approach. But I think if we took a leaf out of Tao's book and said, let's go and ride, let's do the best we can on a day-by-day basis, let's just go and race it and see where we get. Then I think that would be very, very interesting, because those two performances on the Stelvio and then the day after, up to Sestria, he was phenomenal, and boy, he can time trial, so you think he's got all the ingredients there. But I think if we went in with a very sort of, as soon as you say I'm going to achieve something from a GC point of view, it becomes quite intense, doesn't it? Whereas if you just go and race day by day, I think that would be that'd be a really fun thing to do, and I think you get a very, very long way. So I think that would be the way to do it.
We've got a question from Warren. He says, for Sir Dave, if you were directing Sunweb, would have you told Jai to attack Tao earlier on the final climb of the Stelvio stage?
Good question. I think it was quite interesting, wasn't it? When the moment when Rowan's pushing on and Kelderman started to crack. And then the decision for Jay, should he waited on the descent, brought him back on the descent, or did he just stay with Tao and Rowan? And I don't think that will, there's no right and wrong there. I don't think they made their decision, and it's clear that for Jai to win the Giro overall, he needed a buffer, didn't he? Going into that time trial, and I think, to be fair, he tried hard and he's ridden a fantastic race. But with Rowan in the form he was, and Tao being able to, because in that final same stage in Sestria, the first challenge was to put time into Kelderman. So the guys had to go on the attack basically to really, really try and distance Kelderman. And then once he was distanced, if they kept pushing, and Jai was on the wheel, then of course it would opened up, ourselves into for an attack from Jai. So he had to switch once he had a big enough to ride him more defensively. And I think that's where Rowan came into his own again, So they kind of switched when it was about a minute and 6 gap. They switched back to defensive, and I think that made it much more difficult for Jai than when they were pushing on a little bit. So I think he was caught between a rock and a hard place a little bit, if I'm honest.
We've got another question from Jamie. Says, what will this attacking style look like? Multiple leaders trying to break races apart early in stages, or?
Well, I think so. I think rather than just sitting and sitting back and waiting, and I think you've got to be a bit more expansive, really. And it's not to be reckless, you don't want to go and throw a race away and use energy when you don't need to. But I think the question is how you use the team and how you use your teammates and all the resources in the team to create opportunities and create racing chances, other than just closing it all down, and that's what we'll be looking at and trying to do, hopefully.
Not many teams, Dave, have the luxury of having another guy in the wings who can just jump up and win a Grand Tour either. So it doesn't happen that often.
And Ian Thomas. Sorry, mate.
No, go on,
Yeah.
go on.
It was just pump our Green Edge tyres up. They said Green Edge were the pioneers of having fun at work in the last 10 years, maybe why they've always punched above their weight. So what does that mean, Dave? You want to do some backstage passes next year, mate? You want to really dial this knob to level 11 or what?
Yeah, I think there's something to, yeah. You know, at the end of the day, we've got a great bunch of guys. We have a lot of fun, you know, and we do enjoy what we do. And I think we're seen as this kind of robotic science. It's science and art, not art and science for us, isn't it? You know, and it's just, I think for now, I think as a team, I think it's becoming, I think, more about the individual riders and people interested in the riders and their stories and what's going on and how did they get to where they are and how are they feeling, because they're on social media, so you get to kind of see what's going on with the individual riders. And rather than it being sort of everything a team and everybody's robots in a team, it should be more maybe about the characters of the riders and pulling that out in the stars. And if they like being in the team and they say, yeah, great, and we really enjoy being here, then that's a great compliment for the team. But it should be that way around, I think. And there's no doubt about it. If you're happy and motivated and dialed in, you know, it's a much better way of going around your racing than being intense and frowning and doing what I do most of the time, really.
well, it'll take the sting out of it too. Like you were saying earlier, that at times, you know, they love the tall poppy syndrome. If they get that connection, that'll sort of offset that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Bruce wants to know, Dave, do you think the restructure of this season's races will influence how future seasons are put together? E.g., the order of Grand Tours, the World Championships not being at the end of the season.
Well, it's definitely been a very, very different experience this year. You know, I think we're racing, I think it was 130 days of racing in 104 days. And, it's just been back to back. And there's no kind of break in between. And I think the order of the Grand Tours was an interesting thing to reflect on, because normally, you know, the Giro comes first. You kind of get into the swing of things in the Giro. And quite a lot of the guys will say, well, I'll go and have an opportunity in the Giro for myself, and then I'll come back into the Tour and help the Tour team in a role and dedicate myself to somebody else. Of course, that didn't happen. You know, the first Tour this year was straight into the Tour de France off the back of 3 pretty intense races in France in quick succession. And then before you know it, you're up for air. But then it's the Worlds, and then you've got the Giro coming up, and we're still halfway. First week of Vuelta, first rest day of Vuelta today, and it's
and wait, the classics in the middle of that.
And the classics in the middle of that, it's a whirlwind, and it's been enjoyable. I think it's been tough, but there's been a momentum to it, hasn't there? It's been relentless. But there's something about, I don't know, just it's racing all the time, and I think it's been enjoyable. If I'm honest, I really do.
Yeah.
Last of the fan questions, Iffy. Last one, and then you can jump in, mate. Scott Davies says, Dave, next year with Adam Yates, G, Tao, and Bernal, what's the process with the team to divide up the GC focus?
Well, what we'll do is we'll, coming into the off season now, we'll sit down with all the riders as we normally do, and talk to them about what their ambitions are, what they want to try and achieve, what their ideas are, and then we'll sit down as a team and think, okay, well, what are we thinking? And we'll tend to wait for the different courses, the Grand Tours, etc., to be published, so we can have a look at the routes and see who's suited to what, and then we'll try and piece together what our game plan will be for the season. So which riders will try and target which races, and it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, really. Normally it fits together. There's a few sort of edges you need to smooth out every now and again, but if we'd like to, I think the classics is an area where we focus mainly on stage racing, let's face it, and the Grand Tours, but we've got some good young riders in the team now, and Tom Pidcock's coming on board, and I think we just need to broaden our horizons a little bit, and for us maybe take the classics a little bit more into consideration than we have before.
I was going to ask Dave, how are you going yourself? Because you've been pretty keen on keeping yourself fit, but I know that you've had a few health challenges of late. So how are you going? You all good?
Yeah. I've got to go to hospital on Wednesday, actually, for a couple of tests. And so I had, what are we now? October. Yeah. So August last year, I had quite a big operation for I had prostate cancer. But over that now. It feels like it never happened, to be honest. But I don't know if that's just me. But it's in denial. I think I just don't. I don't think about it, and I do try and I work hard on trying to ride my bike every day and stay healthy. But I just got to go back. Got a few tests I need to do on Wednesday just to check everything. So fingers crossed. And it's when you've been told you've got cancer once, and if you've got something you're not quite sure about, you go and test. It always plays on your mind a little bit. And I must say that I do feel much more. I feel very, very. much more. I feel just different. I do. I feel I want to enjoy life. I want to, and that's why I want the racing to be more fun and enjoyable. And it's got to be something that you like everybody else to have fun watching and exhilarating moments and all that kind of stuff, and not just banging your head against the wall. So, but apart from that, Iffy, I'm good. And how are you, mate? How are you?
I'm as good as gold, mate. I learned from my challenges that I was too serious before, so I thought I'd get a bit more lighthearted afterwards. So it's worked well for me. But no, I'm as good as gold.
Luckily, my jokes are better than yours, though, Iffy. So we're all like that.
Well, you can debate that. I'll tell you one story I really did like, that the story of the Grenadiers. So Jim Ratcliffe evidently loved his Land Rover. I think it was the Defender, the model, and then the Land Rover decided they weren't going to continue with it. So he tried to sort of negotiate to take over making it, but they refused. So he ended up making his own, the Grenadiers, and that idea all happened in a pub called the Grenadiers. So that's where the name of the car comes. Is that a true story?
Yeah, true story. Yeah, true story. Yeah, and sitting in the Grenadier pub saying, "Why don't we just make one then?" And I think that was so they have.
It'd be good to have that sort of money, wouldn't it? Like the amount of ideas I come up with at the pub. Jeez, I could have had a whole range of sports cars. I was gonna say, Dave, you said you were going to do a full review at the end of the tour after the Giro. Is that review going to pop up and go, "Yep, we're still pretty bloody good"?
I don't think we'll ever stop thinking we were good. I think to be fair, we've got some fantastic riders, and that's that. In the end, it's about your riders, isn't it? But I guess we were 10 years in, and we worked in certain ways, and we're getting older, and you sometimes think, are we just kind of doing what we always done, rather than getting some fresh ideas and new voices, being challenged. And so I think that kind of review is always a good thing. I mean, it's been great to be able to bounce back. We like always. People like to give us a lot of shit, and I get a lot of shit. We get a lot of praise too when we do well, but we get challenged. But it's nice to be able to, we've got a strong will. I think the one thing about us is we'll keep on adapting, we'll keep on learning, but you never break our will. There's never ever break our will. That's not going to happen. And so when after the tour, it's a question of bouncing back. And then G crashed on the second day, and that was like a real wow. Okay, can't believe that's just happened. But then you bounce back again, and then of course yesterday, little Richie Carapaz took the jersey in the welter. So all in all, we'll have, we're doing okay. We're doing okay, I think. But you've always got to. You can't just rest on your laurels. You've got to keep pushing and keep challenging and keep checking, and I think that's part and parcel of trying to go forward. And I think, there's nothing better than a good old, when you lose every now and again, you get a good old, kick in the bum, as it were, and it shakes everybody down, and you think, right, wow, okay, we've got to go again. And I think that's part of sport, really, and you get those moments where you really got to shake yourself down and go again. And I think that's what we've had a little bit this year. So hopefully it spurs us on to greater things.
Yeah. Well, Dave, we always ask special guests on this show. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People are looking for motivation, inspirational stories, and that. What can you give the people out there that are going through a bit of a tough time from what you've learned on your incredible journey, mate?
Yeah, so I think one of my favourite little things is, I've got two favourite little things, really. One is, I just like the phrase bend like bamboo, because you're going to get under pressure And when that happens, you think, okay, just bend like bamboo and just hang in there, and boom, it'll snap back. It'll come back, and it always does. So that for me, resilience is bending like bamboo, and it's not snapping. It's like a twig, and you take the pressure, and all of a sudden you snap. And so I think it's just that flexibility to know, okay, this is it's a bit tough in a minute. We'll bounce back. It'll definitely bounce back. And I think the idea that tough times don't last in the end, and tough people do, and it's, I think it's just temporary, and we just got to stay with it, stay positive. And I think the other thing is with this pandemic, with lockdown, I think there's nothing better than community and a bit of camaraderie, laughing with your mates and talking to people. So as difficult it is to stay in touch with people, see people face to face, I think making that extra effort to still communicate with people and chat to people, pick the phone up, do what we're doing here. I think that's a really important part of the human psyche, and something that we should all continue to do.
Sensational, mate. Some great words.
Now, you're talking about the human psyche. I'm going to have a bit of a go at you here, Dave, because Dave suffers with a form of agoraphobia. He's scared of spiders. And one of the reasons he doesn't come to Australia is because his whole family is scared of spiders. So how's that going? Have you addressed that, mate? Because we want you out here.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When I was down at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne with Shane Sutton and all the guys, and we were staying in the houses there, and there was a big sort of glass patio door which separated two of the rooms. And we came back, and there was a huge kind of all this screaming and shouting going on, and basically there's a huntsman spider on the patio door, and it was like, what? It was a horrific looking thing. I've never been so scared in my life. And Shane, bless his cotton socks, went up and grabbed it by the leg. He just grabbed it off the window by its leg, like dangling from his leg. Yeah, don't worry about that, mate. And what he did was, he went, and everybody's like, couldn't believe what he did. And he went round, and there's a wheelie bin at the front of the house, and he put this massive spider into the wheelie bin. And then next morning, we were sitting outside, and Ernie, you'll know Ernie, our mechanic of British Cycling.
Yeah.
So he came out, and Shane went, "Hey, Ernie, do us a favour, mate. I think I have an in tube, and I think I threw it in that wheelie bin there. You wouldn't just get it out for me, would you?" We'd open the bin, his head digging around for this thing, and his massive spider. Oh God! I mean, I was petrified just watching it.
God. They're fine, the huntsmen, mate. They won't even hurt you. It's the redbacks that get you. Anyway,
they're big bastards, eh?
Give that one a pass.
Well, it's been an unbelievable journey, as we said, Dave, and we really appreciate you coming on the detour. You're obviously a busy man. You're going to have a lot of people wanting to chat with you, particularly after the Giro, but we really appreciate you coming on and sharing those insights, mate, because no doubt next year you're going to continue to tick a lot of boxes.
Yeah, hopefully, but on the other hand, the reason I'm quite happy to come on here, because you've both played a big part in this sport, and you both contribute an awful lot, and I know that. So it's a real pleasure for me to be able to come back and jump on here with you guys, because I admire what you do. I really do.
Thanks, Dave.
Buddy, legend, mate.
Yeah,
really appreciate you coming on the detour, buddy. Good luck next year.
See you soon, guys.
Good luck, Neverwilder, mate.
No worries. Cheers, mate. How good was that, Johnny?
Very good.
Sir Dave Brailsford. Bloody brilliant. All right, you better give Mitchelton a plug. Time to open up your shoulders, Johnny.
Oh, yes, I've got actually, well, there we go, the beautiful Mitchelton Hotel. So one of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. Experience the history, the beauty and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Looking over the vineyards from the iconic tower, staying at our new hotel, relaxing by the pool, recharging in the day spa, exploring the seasonal menu at the Muse, and stopping by the Providore, touring out our cellars, and of course, tasting our signature wines. Now I'm saying that like I'm part of it, but anyway. It's become a very popular venue for weddings and major functions. And of course, downstairs, the wonderful Aboriginal art gallery, which is world class, and yeah, it's just amazing. And of course, the special
$600,000 Land Rover.
$650,000 paint job on a $10,000 Land Rover. It is sensational. But yeah, it is the place to go. And I'm going up there this weekend. It's my son's 40th birthday. So we'll be there on Sunday in the Muse restaurant, having a wonderful day. It is amazing.
Good stuff, mate. All right, well, we'll have a quick word from our mates at Bike Exchange. Then after the break, we may have another special guest, so stay tuned.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
All right, as we said, we're going to have a special guest, and he's in the lobby, and it's another superstar of UK cycling. That's David Miller. David, can you hear us?
Can hear you perfectly.
All good.
Yeah, Dave. How are you, bud? Very well.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah. Bloody good, mate. We just spoke with Sir Dave Brailsford, all about Tao Geoghegan Hart. But you know the guy really well. You must be pretty rapt for him after the Giro win, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like everybody, isn't it? We're just totally blown away. It's in the best possible way, you know. I mean, I think I've known him since 2013 when he arrived on the scene in Girona as effectively a junior. And I just was blown away in the sense that I was right at the end of my career. So I was, in a way, just hating life and really banging my head against the wall training. And he was just loving it. And he was doing, I couldn't believe the volume of riding he was doing. Oh, hey, Harvey.
Hey, Harvey.
They can't hear, I might turn us so they can hear you. Yeah, and it was, and I remember then just, he had this work ethic. And what was I really found fascinating about him was he broke the mold slightly in that he read books and he was really curious. And I kept lending him books and recommending books, and he just read them voraciously. And that was what was interesting. He wasn't just the physical side; he was an absolute student of the sport. And it's so seeing him, and then going on to the path he took, going to the States, and then taking a little bit of time, being patient before going to Sky, and then with what was going on there, you'd almost wonder if he was going to be destined to be a helper, a domestique, a really solid one. But there were glimmers last year and the last couple of years of what he could do, but it was always for somebody else, for Egan Bernal at California, or Geraint Thomas at the Dauphiné, or Chris Froome. And so to see him do this year, I mean, Jesus, that's just awe-inspiring, to be perfectly honest.
And it was just a great bike race all around, Dave. I mean, right from the start, you know, every day we just got surprised. We were wondering whether it was even going to make it because of the pandemic and everything. But this whole season's been ridiculous. But this Giro has been pretty special. Of course, we're all disappointed for young Jai Hindley, who got to wear the big jersey for about 40 minutes or something, 18 minutes or whatever it was, yeah. But it's still a sensational race. And we're all raving about Rowan Dennis. He's really stepped up. His two days in the mountains were staggering, and they were the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I missed the actual majority of the racing, so I've been commentating on the Volta a España for British TV. So I was kind of seeing clips and bits and bobs afterwards, and it was like, what the hell is going on over there? And it was, yeah, and as you said, with Rowan coming up like that, and I tell you what's great for Rowan as well is it reignites that potential of him being a GC racer, because I think perhaps that had been put a bit on the back burner. And that the way that whole team is, the way that whole team's ridden. But Ryan Dennis in the final few days, if you can be breaking records up to Stelvio and ripping a whole Giro d'Italia peloton in the final 2 days and some of the hardest stages in the mountains, then you're not a terrible climber. So hats off to him.
Amazing.
We were chatting with Dave about Rowan, and how much does mindset and if you're really comfortable in your environment play into the actual riding side of things? Like if you're generally happy, obviously that has an effect on the results.
Yeah, I mean it has. We always say that so much of sport, anything we do is mental. And I think we're starting to come to a bit more realization. We might be coming out the other side of purely analytical based kind of training and performance, kind of performance definition, if you like, and prediction. I think a lot of it is about, on top of that is the mental aspect. So you can do all the best training, you can do, have the best support staff, the best equipment. But if your head's not in the right place, then it means nothing. And so I think seeing, and Rowan, one of the reasons he is such a great athlete is because he can tap into that at times and just do these exceptional rides. But it also is a two-edged sword. It does mean that he's perhaps not as consistent. But I can empathize with that massively. But yeah, I think that team was just buzzing. And I don't think it was just Rowan coming up kind of those final couple of days and being good. They were on a wave. Actually, it was almost like just a flywheel that was just getting faster and faster. I mean, 7 stage wins in total, and with Ghana, with just the whole team just firing everywhere. And especially after losing their leader, who was there to win the race on stage 1, stage 2. I think that's been probably the biggest takeaway is just the strength of character and the culture they built within that team. And for the team that did bring in marginal gains and all the science and analytics, etc., for them to be actually revealing and showing that probably a lot of it is mental, and that actually it's the culture they built at a human level is what's now raising their game above everybody else.
Well, I was going to say, do you think that this Giro will change the game forever for that team moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it might point out before the Giro, I think probably the word on the street was it was the beginning of the decline and fall of the Brailsford Empire. And once again, I think there's no way that was the case. I think what we've seen is actually perhaps the Tour de France and part of the beginning of this year was a blip. And it was a transition. They are going through a transition period with Froome leaving, with Geraint Thomas reaching the end of his career. There was always going to be a little bit of a bumpy road to get onto the next sort of set of rails, if you like. And well, actually, I think what is interesting is they can do both. This is because there's a lot of old talent there, although that can do great jobs. There's an old culture which has been built that's now being instilled in young riders. And I think perhaps as usual, we underrated and underestimated just how deep that team is when it comes to what they can do.
The ride of Ghana, the road stage that he won was also staggering because that was, into some serious hilly country. And for him to do a ride like that for a guy of 80-something kilos, well, it was really amazing.
Oh, it's terrifying. I mean, that's one of the big takeaways from just when I'm watching now from afar, and we do have certain access to data, etc. This whole new generation, they've just moved the bar up. It's gone from we were high jumping with scissor kicks and then Frosby flopping. Kind of, it's like we look like amateurs compared to what they're doing now. And that again is a combination of different things. But I think they keep pushing themselves to do bigger, better things. Hence why we've now got this kind of absolute. It's like dominoes falling, watching all these young riders just win some of the biggest races in the world. And I think that it's hugely inspiring at many levels, but it does also prove that, Christ, I mean, how fast can they go and how far can they go and how long can they go? How strong are they? I think we're still a way off to knowing what the human body can do and mind can do in these races.
Do you feel it's come at a really good time for the sport, given how sort of predictable it was starting to become, particularly the tours, when you have riders winning 4 or 5, from a fan's perspective, I mean, this has really lit a firecracker, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's For a few reasons. I think the sport needed this absolute generation shift from where we've been. I mean, obviously, there's been a huge cultural shift from the kind of the doping era to the anti-doping era and everything that's meant. And also going into the digital era in the sense that the sport's got more coverage than it's ever had before. We see more of it. Before it was, you had to go and dig it out kind of and be an absolute cult fan of the sport to know anything about it, which has changed everything as well, I think. But yeah, I think it's great because there's no baggage with all these young riders. It really truly is a fresh new start, and with that bigger audience that are following, that are learning the sport anew, contrary to some of us like us three here are just hardcore cult fans at the very kind of core of it. For those new fans coming in, it's just amazing to watch. It's kind of it's really cool. I think it's all great for the sport we love.
And you were saying you were commentating on the Vuelta, mate. What are your thoughts there? Do you reckon Carapaz is looking the goods for the overall?
Yeah, I mean, he looked really good yesterday when he went, but Soler's looking amazing as well. And I think it's the biggest takeaway so far is, by God, does it look hard. I mean, it's the first rest day today. They've been racing since Tuesday, and it's just been brutal every day, but almost every day. And I don't think it's going to improve because the weather, so the whole of the Vuelta is up in the northwest of Spain, which isn't the easiest country for bike racing at the best of times. But when it's in October going into November, we could see kind of almost apocalyptic classic conditions in a lot of these stages, which is going to add a whole new element to it. But Carapaz looked at ease yesterday in those conditions. They don't get much worse than they were yesterday, and he came out on top.
A young Hugh Carthy, that was a very good ride of his too. He's really stepped up. Yeah,
he did. There's another rider that kind of has had to change their game plan very quickly with Danny Martinez, who would have been the leader for that team, GC, crashing and kind of taking himself out of GC on first stage. And so Hugh Carthy has not just stepped up. I mean, he was the first of the GC riders kind of across the line yesterday, and that was an amazing performance. So he's legit in the game now. So we might see another Tao Geoghegan Hart situation happening.
I was going to say, I can't say anything because John just bloody cuts me off every time.
Go for it, mate. Dan,
I was going to say, Dave, the Vuelta better be careful with these filthy stages, or the riders will bloody strike. What was your take on what happened? What was your take on the Giro strike with the riders?
I'll always have the riders back because I just think you have to. It's a shame that it always turns into the kind of cluster that it is. And I guess at times, I mean, I understand obviously you have to be empathetic with both sides. I mean, Christ, the Giro d'Italia organization have battled so hard to make sure that race happened. I've had to there's been a lot of politics involved and there's a lot of money at stake. And so when the riders kind of at the last minute decide to not ride out of a town, which probably that town has been counting on it and fought hard to do it, it's going to be tough to explain. Hang on a second. Well, Maxine's crying. Okay, hang on. I'm just about done. Tell her to come here. I'm on daddy duty. Nicole's out running a marathon. And so I think once again, it exemplified just the dysfunctionality of the politics of professional cycling. I mean, it's good to see the peloton manage to find some solidarity. Unfortunately, although I think it was the right decision. I mean, they're all tired and it's a pretty brutal day, and it wasn't going to have much an effect on the race except make them all weaker. And let's face it, if we're talking about the health of the riders as well, if you put them through a day like that, their immune system is going to be destroyed. And if we're kind of talking about the fact they're going through a pandemic, probably sometimes you might want to take a step back and go, probably we should look after the riders' health rather than put them on kind of stage, 19 with 260 kilometer wet, cold day that will, and it's a fact, destroy them immune system wise, even if they take it easy, which would put them much more susceptible to falling sick, to catching things. So there's that element. But I think hopefully it's going to help kind of once again bring the peloton together to do that better. This may be my daughter calling.
You're ringing me, Dan. Oh.
We've lost Dan.
Yes,
okay,
Dan.
Guys, I'm going to have to go. my daughters. John, you gonna be okay?
Yeah, we'll handle it, mate. I'll be here on my
All
own,
right.
which will be a bit different. Good on you, mate. Thanks for coming on. Thanks heaps, bud.
No
You're a
worries.
star.
See ya.
See you, mate. Bye. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just me on the show now. Oh, you're back.
My internet just dropped out. That's the first time for anything. I had the remote internet. I couldn't hear anything.
I was looking at you, but you had that blank stare, which is pretty well normal for you. So I didn't notice that you weren't there. But and you're doing it again. Yep. Well, there you go. So we've got. So fans, just like to say, it was great to have Dave Brailsford. It was also wonderful,
Mate,
to have Dave
Houston,
Miller.
we have internet problems. It was such a good episode, and we've got internet issues, Johnny.
That's all right.
I literally don't know how to fix it.
You're back.
So
you're back. But look,
yeah,
I think we say thank you very much. We've got our ads in. We've got our wonderful guests. It's been we've got an hour of show in. I think it's been an absolute ripper.
Okay.
This is the winning ride on the Tour de France.